The idea of saving the world is quite a nebulous concept for ordinary folks like us, but in the context of fiction, we can make stakes like these and use them to examine our ideals honestly. When faced with the challenge of putting yourself on the line against unbeatable odds for a chance to fulfill your desires, would you forsake your life for them, or would you go back to the life you already had? Kamen Rider Geats puts that question into perspective through the trials of character it puts onto the DGP contestants, especially Keiwa, who finally starts the ball moving on potentially expanding the series to start playing more with the idea of whether fighting for your selfish desires is genuinely worth it, or if fighting for others is more worth your time. Greetings and bienvenue, Didge reporting, and we're finally looking at episodes 7 and 8 of Kamen Rider Geats. I initially decided to do a 3-parter here since this arc is an excellent trilogy, but splitting up 9 on its own felt a bit better since 10 and 11 are their own arc. These episodes are crucial for finally giving us the Keiwa episodes we wanted, so now we finally have some mysteries answered and some more insight into the mind of our faithful POV character. But to understand how the series goes about this, let us summarize the events of these few episodes. Episode 7 starts normally enough, with a recap being done by Keiwa, until his sister sees him and thinks he was jerking off or something. I'm gonna be honest, the scene was kinda weird. He later goes through his stuff with his sister, and we get the reveal that the whole world peace angle was something he had been aiming for since he was a kid, born from his delusions of saving the world as a hero, something he remembers while looking at an origami shuriken, and his sister remarking that he could have saved the world as a ninja. For all of you who know the power-up coming up, this is real subtle, isn't it? While this is happening, we cut to Ace swearing to find someone, clearly being an essential person to him, as you see he's been trying to find her for a while. Neon is yet again trying to escape from her home until the Jamoto strike without warning. Tsumuri explains that this is the final boss round. It's a tiny cacti monster which feeds on people to grow larger and stronger after putting their essence into a can and drinking from it. The riders have to participate in a deadly game of kicking the can to subdue the final boss. However, none of the riders are able to defeat it and are forced to wait back in the lobby. Geats mentions that the monster was likely a threat from before the time he joined the DGP, and was apparently successful in wiping out an entire world. This caused everyone to ask when he joined, to which Geats says since the time of Anno Domini. This means that the line in episode 1 about the olden days was a line that had so much war weight to it. Of course, some of them do treat this as a joke, and Michinaga then asks Keiwa for the boost buckle. However, for once, Keiwa stands his ground, and decides to use it even if he knows that the stakes are high. Geats declares that no matter what, he'll still win. They all go back to cool off, and Ace and Neon meet in a restaurant. Ace tells Neon that fighting for the world, even if it's to fulfill selfish motives, is still noble, since you're still putting yourself out there to save lives. And during this talk, they run into Keiwa and his sister, Sarah, who fangirls hard over the both of them. And they reveal a lot about their lives, including their parents. The gang all has a sweet moment before they leave, and by the following day, they set up the plan to have the monster baited by Keiwa, who finally gets to use Boost. He does an excellent job of evading the attacks and almost kicking the can, until he's batted away and is about to be blasted, until Geats saves him at the very last moment and clears a secret mission to save a player from the final boss. Geats thanks Keiwa for giving him the chance to get the ninja buckle and putting himself in danger since this item would help him clear the stage. Yet again, Keiwa made a fool of himself, and Geats declares he'll save the world but still get his wish, which of course pisses off Keiwa. Geats completely wipes the floor with the monster, kicks the can, and thinks he's won until he realizes that the Jamoto area is still present. The can had to have been kicked out of the area, so when the monster caught it and then teleported away, it didn't count. So the gang ends up back at the Sky Palace, and after Keiwa says he won't trust Geats anymore, he faints from his injuries, and the episode ends. Episode 8 begins with the monster returning and attacking the city, close to where Sarah works, and Keiwa ends up warning his sister about the threat, telling her to hide. The others still wonder how to beat the monster, with Neon trying to practice kicking the can. Keiwa attempts to rejoin the fight despite his injuries, and while the other riders trying to hold back the boss, Keiwa tries to find his sister, who is being attacked by the Jamoto. He transforms, and during the fight, she accidentally touches the Tycoon ID core and has a surge of visions, which turned out to be memories. Memories of the real reason their parents died. The Jamoto had killed him, and because this likely took place during a round of the DGP, the memories of their death was gone, but they never came back. Unfortunately, Sarah gets kidnapped during this fight while Keiwa is helpless to save her. The other riders try to lure the people away from the fight, but Buffa starts fighting with Geats to give him the ninja buckle back, and the boss flees. Keiwa attempts to convince the others to try doing the same plan as the previous episode, and the others are concerned mainly about creating their own world instead. Keiwa wants them to fight for the sake of the world and to not treat this like a game, but Ace points out that if he wants his sister and him to be happy, Is he willing to put the world at risk or make his own family suffer to save the world? In the end of the day, no one is wrong to do this, to make their ideal world. For them, they want to win the game first and foremost. In his words, if you want something, then fight for it. The monster reappears, and after the other riders handle the grunts, Keiwa decides to save his sister by acting as a distraction again. Geats is about to use this opportunity to use the ninja buckle, but it doesn't activate, and instead goes to Keiwa when he is about to declare he won't fall until he saves everyone. This saves him from potential death. At this point, Keiwa leaps around all over the place and lays the complete smackdown on the monster, and even getting to use Ninja Boost to add insult to injury. He destroys the plant pillar, holding everyone hostage, and tells the others to kick the can while falling. Geats and Buffer go for it, and while Geats kicks it, Nago prevents it from being grabbed again and smacks it out of the arena. Keiwa unfortunately has injuries that are too severe, and he's retired from the game after giving his ninja buckle back to Geats. Despite his cold front, Geats shows a genuine appreciation for Keiwa, and declares to end the world by his own hands. With the way these episodes have been going, there's been a trend of mini arcs dedicated to each character, so I wondered what they would do when they reached Keiwa. I was honestly not expecting the episodes to do so much to make me love Keiwa any more than I already did. The dude finally gets an arc to himself, and it proves to be so well realized for his character and his motivations. We finally get more context for his goals for world peace. Keiwa's delusions for saving the world are childish, as they are a reflection of what he believed a capable adult was able to do. But we see how this optimism, while vague, is something that also influences his willingness to help people as an adult now. He put all his effort into all sorts of charitable goals, and he even continues to pursue this ideology even when in the DGP, focusing on everyone but himself. For him, the happiness of others is what drives him. This means, unlike the other riders, the consequences of the game's casualties aren't as ignorable to him. At the very same time, it also points out that saving everyone is impossible, and that people will have to be confronted with the reality that sometimes sacrifices are required for your goals to be reached. This adds so much more stakes to the civilians' death in the series, since it doesn't actually gloss over them and points out how kind of fucked up the situation is, especially when it comes to his own family. Keiwa and his sister lost their parents at such a young age to this game, so by personalizing the conflict, the game's scope is made exponentially dire by making it more personal. And yet, he still put himself on the line for his sister despite his injuries. Keiwa even rejects living a life with his sister in this world since he has to retire for the game, so he loses the memories of his experience in the DGP, but he still chooses to protect who he can before going down with the monster. Had the ninja buckle not saved him, he would have died to save the others without doing much at all. But once he got the thing, he finally became active and decided to dash for the people trapped first and foremost, highlighting his motivations even further, which displays a consistency to character that I have yet to see in any other Kamen Rider series. Geats is also great since we finally get to see him clash with Keiwa in these episodes. He instigates him yet again, showing that despite his seemingly nice side, he's still kind of an asshole. Though Geats still does make his case clear about how one's motives need not determine their nobility, since he does make a statement that I'm glad this show finally decides to say, that fighting to protect people even for selfish reasons is still okay, since you're the one putting your life on the line. Regardless of how Ace used it to leverage Keiwa and Neon to get the buckle, he wasn't entirely wrong when he said that. He even shows himself to be genuine when he defends Michinaga and Neon for choosing to stick to their guns, meaning that he does actually still have a moral code he sticks by, as loose as it may seem. The DGP is still a game to him, and since this isn't his first rodeo, it means that he's especially aware of the nature of needing to put oneself first in a game like this. He honestly feels so well realized by this point in the show that even when he says lines like, "I will end the world with my own hands," you know immediately how this signals a change in his character for the better, since he chose to say that specifically after Keiwa saved them all. He genuinely respects him for his moral conviction and is starting to realize the weight of playing the game. Even his expression is less cocky, but instead is solemn when he says it. You can infer he's not just doing it for himself at this point. And even if Michinaga and Neon aren't prominently developed here, they add a lot to the overall dynamic. Neon also has that idealistic streak that Keiwa has, but because she's willing to be more selfish, she ends up slightly opposing Keiwa for once. And Michinaga also ends up aligning with Keiwa's need to save the world, but goes about it so much more cynically. He tries to talk Keiwa out of doing his initial plan in episode 7, and even if it was to get points, you could see how the previous arc had shaped his interactions with him. This series at this point has fully developed Keiwa as essentially its main protagonist, and despite him being seemingly retired, it's obvious he's going to return. Though that's for another video, and I've sucked off these episodes long enough. We're at the point where we talk about the fights. The fights in these episodes are really not bad, but Tycoon got the best ones as these are his focus episodes. So, since I'm going to gush about Tycoon again, I'll let the other riders have some spotlight. Buffa and Geats' fight in the middle of episode 8 was a treat. Seeing Buffa trying his best to land a hit on Geats was great, but not as much as Geats just wiping the floor with him and breaking a car while doing it. Dude just pulled Shadow Clone Jutsus out of his ass. And that was also after his fantastic scene at the end of episode 7, where he just used shit tons of clones against the monster with the ninja buckle and just levitated around the air and dashed across the thing 4 ways. It was an incredibly impressive beatdown. But I swear, this dude always has to get his grubby hands on the power-ups before everyone else gets a chance to, doesn't he? The Shadow Clones do look overpowered though, and I hope that unlike Giffard, Rex, and Revice, they still use this ability and don't forget about it later. But obviously, the episodes were building up to the main event with Tycoon's fight. Episode 7 had to have him lose, but the effort he made was commendable. Seeing him finally use the boost buckle after all this time was a treat, and I'm glad he got to go all out with it, even if Geats was just using him. And the scene with him using Ninja, while some may argue was a bit of a cop-out since it means he gets a power-up for something that would have killed him, I like to think that the thematic purpose of being willing to put his life on the line to save others despite the circumstances worked to make both a hype moment for an action scene and also further his character. I mean, it looks cool as hell. Seeing him leap from place to place and getting to do a rider kick while boosting around the place was awesome. But the consequences of this fight was also perfect. Having him still be punished means that while his actions are commendable, he's still not immune to the rules of the world and so is retired. The DGP made a good call in making sure he doesn't keep going, because unlike everyone else, he's more at risk of dying due to his own lack of concern for himself. Everyone else is more likely to die from just sheer overconfidence. But back to the visual part of it, I will bash the CGI a bit. I get that Kamen Rider is not a high-budget film, it's a TV show and it does not have an infinite amount of money. But I don't think they have to keep doing these giant monster fights with copious amounts of poorly rendered CG to make me feel like the fights have higher stakes. I can enjoy them for their choreography and still appreciate the models themselves, but the lack of consistent lighting and texture work is distracting. It hurts since the CGI has been on point for the transformations and regular fight scenes, since it isn't covering up at least 90% of the screen. At least the strong writing made the hype towards the scenes all the more enjoyable despite the visual hiccups. Overall, the series is showing that it is not willing to hold its punches and is still trying to raise the stakes, give us answers, and still set up new plot points. This arc has shown itself to be the culmination of Keiwa's character up to this point, and despite some wonky effects, the writing has carried these episodes hard. Now, we'll obviously be at the point where Keiwa is not present in the story, but now that he's out, we'll have to see who the next God of Desire will be, and how the series will continue on without Keiwa being a focal character. But as I said, that's until next time, folks. This is Didge, signing off. Hey, if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing and pressing the bell for notifications. I'm really looking forward to growing this channel and would love some feedback. Hopefully you enjoyed what you've seen. So long.